Murphy, the senior editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and In the Men's Room with Murph. And today we have an exceptional gentleman here, both of us, here in our studio, because we're talking about a fabulous new book that everybody should get. Let me introduce them first. First of all, we have Leading with Honor, Lee Ellis. And let me tell you a little bit about Lee. He's a nationally recognized leadership coach, award-winning author, certified speaking professional, and most importantly, a colonel in the United States Air Force. You wrote this book because of a particular segment of your life, which we'll talk about in a second. But I want to tell you that this book has been co-authored by our own favorite, Godek, who wrote 1001 Ways to Be Romantic, who his best work is being married to Karen Buxman, who is a yes, they are an adorable
couple. To say that.
Yes, pardon me?
She tell you to say that?
No, she did not. But I just, you know how I celebrate love in every segment. And that's what this book is all about. The book, which you co-authored with Lee, is called Captured by Love, Inspiring True Romance Stories from Vietnam POWs. And we've had some guests on POWs before, but you have this is one of the most beautiful arrangements to have the input from Greg on 1001 Ways to Be Romantic, and you writing about the stories, the romance stories from these Vietnam POWs. And prior to your jumping on, Greg and I were talking about, Greg, tell him, we talked just about the stress and the uncertainty, I think is the word you used.
Oh, my. Oh, Lee should really, Lee's the one who lived through this. But, when I first got introduced to Lee, and a colleague of both of ours brought us together, and he told me about this concept of writing the love stories of a group of Vietnam POWs. I just went, what?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, love and romance and military and war. And not only that, but prisoners of war. Oh, you know what I learned a little bit on the whole process of this is that the younger generation do not know what POW stands for. We all do. We all just, but bringing those together, it was just mind-blowing and emotional, both exciting and heartbreaking.
It's really beautiful, Lee. And this is such a contribution because there is a huge percentage of the group that don't know anything that went on with that. And so tell us, first of all, say hello, because we're so excited about talking about you. We're not even letting you talk. So.
Well, it's great to see you again after NSA speakers. I've seen you several times there before. Good to see you again. And I am excited about being here because, as Greg was talking about the book, guys don't read romance books typically, but the guys are reading this because it's got war stories in it too. But many guys have said, I'm laughing on one page and I got tears coming down on the next page. So they said they really loved it. So, of course, the women like it too. But we highlighted kind of what the POWs went through and how they came home so healthy, because there's been a lot of research done on this. And we came home and we've had wonderful romances.
Greg, when you were going to throw something in there, when you said you came back healthy, I'm like, I read.
Oh, that's one of the amazing. We've never really listed here are amazing. Here are 10. Here are 20. Just amazing things. And you had this group of 20 former POWs, and they've gone through years and years of torture and deprivations, and we've talked it'll all bring tears to your eyes that what humans can do to other humans. But this subgroup of men came back and have all created these incredible marriages and love stories and healthier. Like they've done studies, right, Lee? You guys have
Yes.
studied
Oh, yeah.
death.
Yes. In
Well,
fact, I talked with someone today in an email. They posted on LinkedIn a story about she had been a PhD candidate and was working with the Naval Air Medical Institute down in Pensacola when they have done all of the healthcare and psychological follow-up to really collect data for what the POWs were like when we came home and since then, and for more than 50 years. And so a number of PhDs have written reports or papers on how the POWs came home so emotionally, mentally, physically healthy, and how it's just incredible compared to their peers.
well, Lee, you obviously had to have this thought in your mind to do it. Tell us a little bit about how it started. Because everything starts as
Yeah.
this inspiration.
Well, I've written several leadership books, and so at reunions, I kept hearing and meeting the wives, and we became friends. And my wife and I got married when after 14 months after I got home. I was probably the last bachelor to get married, and I've been married 50 years and 2 months now.
And that's consecutive years too.
No,
Yeah.
the second marriage.
No, consecutive.
Oh, consecutive years.
Yeah.
Yes. I thought you said the second of yours.
No, I knew it was not. I
My
knew
hearing is not so good. But, I kept hearing these stories and I looked at these folks and I said, Hollywood could not write a story this crazy. Nobody would believe it. And so somebody needs to write a book about POW romance and relationships and the success we've had in our marriages. And I just finally I said nobody's doing it, so I got to do it. And so I reached out to a friend, and he connected with Greg. He's a romance writer, and so the two of us together, we went down and went at it. And it was just we have several other stories we didn't get in there, but we have many stories that are just solid. But between every chapter, there's 20 stories. Between each chapter, we have historical highlight, and so we have a one page. Half of them are about what was happening in the POW camp, and half of them are what was happening with the wives and families back home. And they're usually one page, except and a couple of them where they're photographs and graphics, and they're 2 pages. But that one page tells what was happening in the camp and what was happening with the wives back home. But then the stories tap into both of those stories there, the historical stories and the relationship stories kind of tap into that. So it's just it's an amazing thing how people were so committed. And I think we came home so healthy in that we had, because of what the wives did, the wives and families put pressure on the communists starting in late 68 and early 69. And when the Nixon administration came in 69, Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird endorsed their stance because they'd been told to keep quiet, and he endorsed their speaking up. The government didn't fund any of this, but Ross Perot and others like that paid for these families to fly to Paris to confront the communist delegation at the Paris peace talks. That's where they've been negotiating for years in 1972, by the time of 72. But anyway, there was these women back home, mainly women in the late 60s, they changed the world. They changed our world because they put pressure on the communists to stop the treatment, because the communists of North Vietnam had signed the Geneva Conventions, which said that they would treat captured people, captured soldiers, by lenient and humane treatment, and they would get to ride home. And we weren't doing any of that, and we were being tortured. So they stopped that. And when Ho Chi Minh died in September 69, and the new leaders came in October after celebrating his death, the new leaders came in and called in all the camp commanders of the POWs, the communist camp commanders, and told them to stop the torture. That was amazing. So we had 3.5 years to get healthy.
Oh my. See, this is the context that people need to hear, because
Yeah.
we didn't live, and some of these people didn't even live in that time. And now we're living in theirs, and there's such a story to be told. Greg, when you were approached with this, knowing that you'd written 1,001 Ways to Be Romantic, which has been a bestseller for a million years, including 17 other books in case you weren't busy, and Oprah liked number 584. I need to look that up. Tell me a little bit about what was your first thought when Lee approached you? I mean, this is like a collision of divine inspiration.
It really was. I was baffled but intrigued. I was like, I don't see a connection here, but I'll talk with this guy. Because I talked to a lot of people about books and their concepts and so on. And within 5 minutes of talking with him, I just said, I'm in. And here's the core of the book. And this is one of those dozen things that it just like amaze me, that the lessons they learned and the principles that kept these guys alive are the same principles you need to have a long-term relationship, a love relationship. It's like surviving torture and years and all of that versus, couples. I mean, people talk about, battle of the sexes. No, these guys, went through battle and all of that. And, just for instance, I mean, as simple as this sounds, but the importance of communications. Now, in general, women are better communicators than men. They share more, they're more all open and so on. Communications kept these guys alive. If they didn't have, Lee, you got to tell them some of the secret ways you guys communicated with each other, because they would be beaten if they communicated with anybody outside of their own cell. I mean, for communicating.
Yeah.
And I mean, the faith that they had is beyond belief. And I mean, and it's both, faith in God, faith in country, faith with each other. And I mean, honestly, one of the fellows, after coming back, after I think a couple of decades, he went back to Vietnam and he found one of his torturers, and they became friends. They forgave each other. Can you imagine?
It just gives me chills.
I'm a nice person, but I don't know if I could forgive someone that tortured me. But Lee, tell them some of the ways you guys communicated.
Well, we tapped on the wall. We had a tap code, a 5x5 matrix, so we could tap. That's H23. That's I. So we had a lot of time to tap, and we got really fast, and we could communicate that way. But then we had hand code. Two guys sat down one afternoon and came up with a hand code, and you could say hi, TD, and you could learn this hand code because every letter in the alphabet was simple, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are so simple and quick to learn. So we were able to communicate 20 or 30 yards away or 50 yards away with a guy in silence and not bring up the guards. They wouldn't hear us. So we kept all sorts of ways to communicate. But, I think one of the things I want to say is that had we not had that change in treatment in 69, mainly in late 69, it stopped. And then 70 is when it really came about. So we had 71, 72 until we came home in 73. And then there was a raid on the Sante camp by the Special Forces, and we had all moved out, so there wasn't any POWs there. But they got afraid that they were going to raid all the camps, the Special Forces were, And so they moved us all back to the Hanoi Hilton and put us in big cells. And I was in a cell with 55 guys, an open bay cell with about 1,800 square feet with 55 guys for almost 2 years. Now, that's where we got healthy because we connected with people, living with somebody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year and a half, 2 years. You can't pretend. You got to be yourself, and you got to accept others. And so we learned to really accept others who are different. And these guys we're all pretty egotistical. Most of us are fighter pilots. And so we listened
You know something
together.
about fighter pilots.
We learned together. And that's what got us healthy to come home. And that's why our PTSD was so low compared to others. And while we were outliving our peers and while we've had such great marriages, we got healthy. We grew. Actually, we grew in that. And here's about 8 years ago, we were at a reunion down in San Antonio, and there was about 8 or 10 of us around the table. One of them was a retired 4-star general, only one of us to make 4-star. And but they were all lieutenant colonels and colonels, all retired, sitting around this table. And one guy's just out of the blue, we're having a drink, sitting talking. One guy says, I would never volunteer to be a POW, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Really?
And we'd all been POWs 5 to 8 years, and the average at that table was about 6 or 6.5 years POW. And everybody agreed with him.
Oh my. Greg, what were you going to say?
I want to paint the picture a little bit, though, because the big rooms that they were in, they were packed in like sardines.
I was just going to say.
They were on top of each other, which I think most people would define as hell on earth. Especially like these, like you said, these are alpha males. Everybody thinks they're the biggest and the strongest and so on. But they got along. And they taught classes. I mean, these guys are very educated too. These aren't a bunch of.
I taught French. I taught beginning French. I took secondary French, and I studied Spanish and German. And we had no books now. It was just guys who knew how to speak it. And I got fluent in French, fluent in Spanish, and had a 2,000 word vocabulary in German in those 2 years I was in there.
I mean, they taught poetry. They taught music.
Yeah. I memorized poems, long poems, We all memorized poems and Bible verses. If somebody knew a Bible verse, we would memorize that. We had time to do those things. We weren't rushed.
Greg, share the thought you were just about to share with us. You were talking about this. First of all, being one of 9 kids in 1,600 square feet, that was already rude. But now you had 55 men, and you know what I'm hearing here, and being a complete devotee to connection, the connection
Exactly.
was so intensely intimate. I'll say intimate because you're close. Yeah. And because the only thing you could share was your collective intellect. And so I'm telling you, this book should be required reading because it gives context to the will and the strength of not only connection, but of adaptability, of collaboration. I mean, dear Lord, to me, it's just a remarkable work of art, seriously, is what I'm going to say. And I think I want to use what I can do to spread the word because it gives such a personal insight into the power of will and the power of relationships, Greg.
Community.
And in every way, in the most extreme circumstances. When you said healthy, I thought, just knowing the little bit I know from reading other books, rice was not always one of my Charlie Plum said, as long as we don't order rice, we're good, because that's when you said healthy, I'm thinking, did you get enough vegetables? I mean, but not to change the subject, because this book is focused on the outcome of the relationships with their loved ones.
Mhm.
Is there one that stood out for either one of you?
One stories, the story.
Yeah, I know you've got Tarzan and Jane, which I thought was adorable.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, you can. I just
Okay,
Greg,
I'll give you time here. One of my favorite anecdotes from one of the stories, Lee will know the names, and there's too many names for me, but I know the stories inside out. But this one fighter pilot, his plane was shot. He was going down, and he was too close to the ground already. So there was not even time, to barely get out. And as he was going down, he was thinking about the torture that was waiting for him. And he very seriously considered going down with the plane instead of enduring torture. But then he remembered something that his wife said to him before he left. She said, "Don't you dare die and leave me alone with 3 little kids." And he said it was a choice between the torture and my wife. And I chose the torture.
That was Dick Stratton, and he lived to be 94, and he died 3 weeks ago.
oh,
He had such a wonderful, wonderful life, and uh, yes, that's exactly the story, Greg. That's exactly right.
perfect, Greg. Perfect. Well, go ahead.
One of the things that I took away, actually, Karen and I have been married 19 years, and but from one of the stories, we now have a motto. And there's one couple what we were interviewing on Zoom, and they pointed to the shelf. There's this little wooden sign, and it says, "Nobody will ever be as entertained by us as us." And it just struck a chord because that's us too. It's like we are, in some ways, we're in a bubble, and we
Yes.
just are. We're two peas in a pod. And it's like, no, but no. We do lots of other things out in the world and so on. But seriously, like some that we've said, our life is a sitcom. But anyway.
Well, knowing both of you, I just tell you it's a smile every time, Lee. So
I have one story if you got time.
Oh, of course I do. Please.
Okay. Tom McNish was a fighter pilot shot down about almost a year before me. So he was there over 6 years, and he was single, Air Force Academy guy, uh, North Carolina plowboy, and he'd worked on the farm and everything, but he was very strong. Well, he had been dreaming about someday coming home and meeting someone and marrying them. He was single, and he had the exact description of what she was going to be, and she was going to be tall and slender, and all this dark haired and all this stuff and everything.
Good looking Christian girl.
Yeah, good looking Christian girl, because he was a strong Christian. And so he got off the airplane in Montgomery, and I was went into Montgomery too, 2 weeks after he did, but he landed there, and this gal who was a widow had gone up. Her husband had been a POW, and she had been helping her friend all those years and selling bracelets and all that stuff. So she was there when the guys got off the airplane, and Tom got off and said a little something when he got off, and he said, "And I'm single and I'm ready to meet some girls." And she was standing on the roof of one of the base operations, and she heard him, and she said something like that. And then a friend introduced her to Tom in a couple of weeks. Now she's Jewish and had 2 kids, and he's a strong Christian.
She was short.
Oh, huh?
She wasn't tall.
Yeah, she was short. She was just totally different from the gal he'd been dreaming about. He proposed to her in May when we were at the White House at the banquet that President Nixon threw for us, and Bob Hope was the MC that night, and they had a lot of entertainers in there at that banquet at the White House. It was the largest banquet ever held at the White House. 1,100 of us there with our couples, I took my mom there because I hadn't met the gal yet, but he proposed to her in the East Room or one of those rooms in the White House that night, and they got married. And they were married over 50 years, and he passed away a few months ago.
Oh, what a story. But do you notice, Greg, how they always want somebody tall? Okay. The short girls, we won anyway. Bless her heart. Well,
So here's one another meeting story, which is truly unbelievable. One of the fellows had lost his wife while she was, I'm not sure if she had left him or not, which is pretty rare. But he came back and he was alone. And over here, there was a widow. Her husband had died, and there was
he was a Marine helicopter pilot and didn't come home.
And Ross Perot, billionaire, all that, threw this huge party at the Cotton Bowl for all these guys and others. So you've got 20,000 plus people here. The entertainment was Tony, Orlando, and Dawn.
Oh,
singing, and they introduced the song "Tie a Yellow
Ribbon."
Okay, which became a theme song for the returning prisoners. Well, these two total random strangers were sitting next to each other. They each had another date, not love dates, but companion dates. And during the middle of this song, she gets teary. She's starting to cry. And he just leans over and gives her just a little kiss on the cheek, just like, I understand. They ended up getting married. It was like,
at an intimate dinner of 1100 at the White House.
Right.
Wow. This book is so loaded with nuances that just renew the spirit of hope and love. And you can, like you said, men don't read romance books, but everybody needs love. And everybody needs to be seen, valued, and heard. And those women that campaign to get you guys out, bless their hearts, as we would say in the South. And Greg, to weave your magic and perspective into the detail and facts and data, which are tough, really makes this book a must-read and just truly a special work of art. I know that you speak on it. I know that you're working on other books because Greg, you have to do 1001, How to Be Romantic 1001 Ways update, because there's things that have happened since you wrote it.
It's funny. I am just recently been pondering writing an update, which tentative title is 1001 Ways to Be Romantic, the Baby Boomer edition. And I'm thinking of putting out the word that I'm looking for 1,000 co-authors, one idea or story per person from people around the world. And what really a big part of the inspiration was working with Lee, because I had never co-authored before. Like I said, I'm pretty darn independent.
Yeah,
I'm still going to be in charge. I'll choose the stories and I'll edit them. But just the thought of getting 1,000 people to participate in this, and it's like, that's pretty cool. So it's been on the back burner. It might be moving to the front burner. I would love to hear what anybody thinks about.
Oh yeah, we can work on that.
Dopey.
We can work on that because, Lee, I'm going to be careful how I say this, but I would say these fighter pilots may not articulate romance. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm. We have a mindset that they are tough and direct and precise and accurate and disciplined. Oh, did I say disciplined? Yeah. So I think that this partnership that you've had with Greg and you with the stories will give inspiration that goes beyond, because some of these people now have a different perspective on relationships after they got home. And I haven't finished reading the book because you can only do a little bit at a time because it's sort of like eating a chocolate cake in one bite. There's so much good to it. And there's so much revelation of ways to support, nurture, and grow a relationship in a positive way that's not just roses and an occasional dinner.
You mentioned how men don't read romance and so on, but here's the really important connection point for men is that all of the lessons that we've pulled out of here, they don't come from a psychologist. They don't come from a lovey-dovey point of view. It comes from a military survival point of view. So it's a little more accessible for most men than to hear, well, you need to, be quiet and listen to your wife and pay attention to her. And there's that tone of voice too, right? It's like, that's a much more feminine kind of thing. Here you've got, no, you want to survive?
Yeah. Dear Lord. So Lee, this is obviously a tremendous work that you've both accomplished here. Is there one takeaway that you would like for people to hear about what you in your heart wanted to communicate? Because clearly this was a very unique focus on relationships and connection and community, which is universal, as Greg pointed out. Because I want to tell people where to get the book, how to get the book, if you want to speak. I mean, we could be here for a long time because this is so incredibly rich and fascinating.
I started out because I just felt like that they were amazing stories that we needed to capture, and it would highlight what the women did and what the POWs did and show how they came together. But as we got into that, I started seeing some good lessons. Now, I'm a leadership coach, and I've written several books on leadership with, they all have lessons in each chapter. And so what I was totally amazed at, and I hadn't planned to do this, but at the end of every chapter, at the end of every story, we have 2 or 3 lessons about love and romance. But the interesting thing is, those I have summarized 7 on the bookmark. I have 7 of those summarized, and they're about 12, I think. But they they apply in every part of your life, and especially for leaders. You know, you've got to trust people. You got to believe in people. You got to listen to people. All those different kinds of things that happen in the workplace. It just happens with a less intensity and less of a relationship, but it's still, those lessons apply everywhere, and they will 1,000 years from now.
Amazing. Greg?
One of the things that has really stuck, a whole bunch of things have stuck with me on this, but one of the ones, and we titled this one story Independently Interdependent. And that, just that phrase, right? You just get it. And it's like, it's so profound because, most of them were couples, most of them were already married. They were separated, years and years and years. So they were very independent. And Lee alluded to this earlier, but I mean, we're talking, the late 60s and the early 70s. And if you think back culturally and women's place in America, it was a very different world. And these women rose to the occasion and raised their kids. One woman bought a house and refurbished it, and it was like a rental property or something. But women couldn't get without a husband's signature or a father's signature.
Yeah, you could get a mortgage.
A loan.
Yeah, you could get the loan.
It's just, and they persevered. And, so we're independent. I'm myself, I'm fine as I am, but I am also simultaneously interdependent with this other person. I mean, it's almost an oxymoron, but it's so true.
Especially with people in your line of work. Go ahead, Lee.
I think that's so true in healthy marriages because you can't control the other person and they're not like you. They're probably opposite you. My wife and I are totally opposite.
I would like to meet her.
We're totally opposite on every trait of personality, and on patience, we're 3 standard deviations apart. She's got a lot and I've got none. Okay. So I have to coach myself on the way home from work or when I'm down in my office here. Now, Lee, when you go upstairs, you just settle down and soften it up and just talk to Mary and listen and listen.
I would love to interview some of the women just because I want to showcase their courage and their tenacity for the people that they care about. And I just can't thank you personally enough. And I know Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, in the men's room with Murph, all will benefit from this message and will continue.
Don't we get to be in the men's room too? I mean,
everybody gets to be in the men's room. You know, I did it actually for search engine optimization because I figured with the billion interviews, I wanted, if you were male, I wanted to be able to find that. And it sounds kind of fun, you know, because where are all those girls from high school now? Okay, here I am with these gorgeous guys. So if someone wanted to get the book, is Amazon the best place?
It's anywhere out there. I think you can get it, but you can get it at Amazon. Yes, right away. It's in digital, you know, and that kind of book, and it's in softback. We don't have hardback, and it's an audiobook. And we've screened several audiobook speakers that translate, that carry on audiobooks, and I and Greg and I are somewhere in the between the chapters with that historical highlights. We give a little bit, and we gave the introduction, but this guy, he's just great, and that audiobook is really good too. So it's out there.
I'm going to push that one through all of our networks, especially since people really do listen to books. And if you remember Charlie Tremendous Jones, he said first you page through it and then you listen to it and then you buy it. So it gives people more flexibility to learn the lessons. Go ahead.
One thing that I recommend to everybody is a website. We have built a website for this. It's called powromance.com. And you can download the first 2 chapters there, and you can read the introduction, the foreword. Now, we haven't talked about the 2 of my friends who came in and did the foreword, Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan, and the guy that Greg mentioned a while ago, Tony Orlando, the singer and actor too.
Yes,
he attends many of their annual reunions. That's how they've all bonded.
Yeah, he was a speaker at one about 3 or 4 ago, and he told the story of his life and how he'd become a Christian and was living for the Lord. And he had some health problems a couple of years ago, but I spoke at the Palm Springs Aviation Airport, not Aviation Museum, at their event this past year in Palm Springs last winter. And Tony came down and he sang and he spoke a little bit. And when he saw me, he just came over and hugged me.
Oh, so yeah, Gary Sinise did say you'll be entertained, inspired, surprised, challenged, and hopefully moved to action by this great book. Bless your hearts for doing that. And both of you are speakers. So if we go to the website again, say what? Yeah, we're all speakers.
We're all.
Yeah, we can't do it. Yeah. But, you know, that's the gift of the energy that happens when you do, whether it's particular if it's live. But I think there's a great opportunity here to reconnect with people who did serve wherever they served, whenever they served. And really, Greg, thank you so much for adding the special sauce that you have to make this so engaging and so what do I want to say? It's just so it's almost like you want to read the whole thing in 1 minute, but you can't. So I'm just personally want to thank you both. Thank you for your service, Lee. I can't imagine. We talked about it. We can't even fathom how you all got through that, but there must have been a divine outcome for it. We've got it. I hope you'll join us again. We might want to just spotlight some of the stories, Greg and Lee. So thank you so much for joining us here at Realty Times in the men's room with Murph, and I hope you'll join us again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.